Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, and I've got a special guest to the channel, Steve Kilbey from the church. How's it going, Steve?
Pretty good, thanks. I'm glad to be here, Peter. Everything's peachy.
Fantastic. So, the church have recently announced a tour in Australia in November. The Singles Tour, a career retrospective, at least 20 classic singles spanning the career. Look, I've read that you always like to take a look forward approach. I was a little bit surprised this is a bit of a look back approach. Why the change this tour?
Well spotted. Um, yeah, no, that's true. Well, I could say two things. I could say, because it wasn't what everyone thought I would do, that's the reason I'm doing it. Or I could say, I promoter wanted it, the rest of the band wanted it, and the audience wanted it. And it was presented to me that this would be a really good thing to do. And I thought, yeah, I might as well just one more time. Let's go out and do this. Career retrospective. That's a good thing to put on there. It sort of it contextualizes it, I guess. I guess. Look, it is it isn't the normal thing I do.
Yeah.
But
So with this show, you're going to
yeah.
be putting 20 classic singles. Will there be any room for, playing maybe some of this, Arista, or maybe the
Well,
Hypnagogue? Any
yeah. Well,
tracks?
two of those songs are going to be on there. The
Cool.
Hypnagogue and Realm of Minor Angels, by their very definition, are two of the singles that we will be playing.
Fantastic.
And the encore, nobody knows yet what the encore will be. So maybe the encore will be a chance to break away from the singles. I hope I can get this out of my system and everybody else's system.
Yeah.
Discharge my duties honorably with this.
Yeah.
And next year, if there is a next year, then come back and do something more esoteric.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's some songs that are just rusted on, like the Unguarded Moment, Under a Milky Way. How do you keep playing these songs so that it's fresh for you? Do you do subtle changes here and there just
I
to keep?
don't.
Yeah.
I don't. They can't be fresh for me. But it's
Mm.
like, okay, I've got to drive to another suburb and pick up my coffee.
Hmm.
It isn't about keeping the drive fresh for me. It's about getting there and obeying all the rules and regulations and doing it successfully, picking up
Hmm.
my coffee and getting back home. It's not The aim of the game isn't to make it fresh and interesting for me with these songs. It's to deliver them to the audience, to deliver them with the sound. This is a bit of a paradox. To deliver them exactly as they are and as they want to hear them. They don't want to hear a reggae reinterpretation. They don't want to hear the jazz rock version. They don't want to hear, they want to hear them the way they were. And our aim is to deliver them as they were, but with more oomph.
Yeah. Does
So,
that I
yeah.
mean, you're a rock fan. Does that disappoint you when you see some of your idols and they do a reinterpretation like a reggae or a dub version of a song? Does that really
Like
piss you off?
Dylan, well, made this live album, and every song was reggae. Suddenly, all of these classic songs were like, it wasn't even proper reggae. It was a sort of a reggae. He discovered this. I guess everybody discovered reggae around the same time.
Yeah.
It didn't. If if I could figure out a way to reinterpret them successfully, but I think with a classic kind of song, the way people want to hear them,
Mm.
they have that right. They buy the ticket. It's not like they know exactly. We're telling them exactly what they're going to get. You can look at the poster and see which songs we're going to play.
Yeah.
Um, I think our obligation is to play them properly and as they expect to hear them. It's not incredibly adventurous, but that's not what they're signing up for. I saw Peter Hook and the Light, and last year or the year before at the Enmore Theatre, they did the two Joy Division songs, two Joy Division albums, and some other songs that weren't on the album. Then they came back and they did fucking New Order, and they delivered them as close to the record as you could, and that was a satisfying experience. It's not Jazz Odyssey. It's not.
Yep.
But it depends what you think your mission is. And I think the mission with this is to make those songs sound like the people want to hear them. They want to hear them that way, and that is not. It's not for me to stand and go, oh, I'm just trying to make it interesting for myself.
Yeah.
So I've changed it all around. I don't think
so they can discover your later catalogue. I like that stuff, and then explore stuff.
There you go.
Going on that journey.
That's right.
You're doing a run of dates in America.
Yeah.
What are the main differences between the American audiences and the Aussie audiences? Are they generally receptive to the newer material, or they just want Starfish?
Good question. I think Australian audience is a little tougher, and also with this particular show, really Unguarded Moment and Almost With You don't mean a hell of a lot in America, not like they do here. So some of those early singles aren't so they're not going to
cut through.
They're not they're not going to get that crazy thing that Unguarded Moment gets. But generally speaking, I would say American audiences I have found to be more I don't know, more what's the word I'm grasping for? Help me along here, Peter.
More feverish. More feverish.
More feverish.
Yeah.
They're easier to make happy. Australia's a bit tougher. If you're having them on, well, at least with the church, if you're having them on, they know you're having them on, and they don't really want to be a part of that.
Absolutely, they can really detect if you're not authentic. I think is how
I think
it goes.
They can. I think if they know what you, if they know you, like they know the church, they will know if we're having a good night or not. I think in America, also, you're because you've come such a long way and you're only there once a year. It's more of a special thing. Sometimes in America, we walk on stage and get a standing ovation just by walking on stage. That's a truly wonderful thing. But then where do you go from there when you haven't played a note? So having a kind of being a visitor to another country already gives you a little bit more extra kind of wallop, I find.
What's the vibe in the UK to the church? I read a lot of stories about you in the US, but not so much in the UK. How are you guys received in the UK and Europe?
In Europe, in the UK, in London, if we went to London right now, they would love it. I just know they would, because we haven't been there for so long, and everybody's asking us to go there. And really, like, without offending anybody, England, because I'm English.
Yes.
England was always the country that I've got in mind when I'm writing, and everything that I do is really expressing my sort of half Englishness anyway. Because I've lived in Australia for so long, I think of myself half English, half Australian. I would love to go to England. I'd love to play. I'd love to do a comprehensive tour of England and Scotland, and playing all of those cities, Newcastle and Sheffield and Manchester, Glasgow.
And You've got some pretty big fans over there, like Robert Smith. He waxes lyrical about you, Steve, and you were in that
A
concert.
festival.
Yeah, festival
Yeah,
with him.
yeah. Well, Bobby, if you're listening, get me a ticket and get all the band over there. I don't know why. There's no real reason why we don't get there. It's just harder,
Yeah, I know.
and
It's a dead
and
distance.
it's harder to set it all up,
Mm,
and
yeah,
I know it's just easier. I guess the
yeah,
path of least resistance to tour America and tour Australia.
yeah,
Um, but
absolutely.
yeah, no, we I imagine when we finally get back to England, they're going to like it.
Yeah. I've grown up with you guys
Uh-huh.
through TV shows like Countdown, Rock Arena, Donny Sutherland Sounds. Used to love watching you do those video reviews on the couch. But the church, to me, even when I was a young guy, always didn't seem to fit in with the pub rock. Steve, you seem to
No,
be in your own niche, you kind of maverick. Did you
that's
feel like
right.
Did you feel like outsiders at the time?
Yeah, of course. Of course we did. And sometimes that was great and sometimes it wasn't. I never felt part, although I benefited greatly from the pub rock explosion
Mm,
and I popped up at the right time to take advantage of that. I never felt, I mean, Jesus Christ, look at, when you think of the Aussie pub rock explosion, who do you think of? You know,
Angels,
Angels, Akadaka, Chisel,
yes, yes.
all of that. It's not
Mm,
really what I do.
yeah.
Um,
But did you feel frustrated at the time people were trying to pigeonhole you into something like power pop, new wave, Paisley scene? Because I don't think you're genre specific. You sort of float amongst different scenes. You're a bit of this, bit of that. Did you get
look,
frustrated by people
I
pigeonholing
did.
you?
Yeah, I did, but I can see why it's necessary. I mean, say you were telling me about a new band that you just discovered. You're going, oh, you really should hear them. They're kind of like Radiohead, or you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
They're Brit pop, or they're shoegazer. I can see the necessity
Mm,
for categorization and comparisons. Um, I hated it. I was just the last interview I was doing. I was talking to the guy. He was saying, were the record companies and stuff trying to make you more like something else? And I said, yes, they were. They
mm,
were. They. I think the thing is, I was always playing the long game.
yep.
I was playing the long game right from the start. I wanted to make music. I wanted to go on and evolve, and I didn't want my music to be some ephemeral thing that would be locked in a sort of like unable to ever escape from being a new romantic or being Brit pop or
Mm,
any category. I wanted to reserve the right to be able to wander out of that.
mm,
Um, it's all really complicated, and of course, I feel differently nowadays. I can look back on all that and laugh because nobody tries to make me do anything.
yes.
I can do whatever I like, really. Although obviously I'm contradicting that because I'm sitting here talking about our singles show where we're
Yeah.
coming back and playing the singles. But
Yeah.
I don't have to do that. Um,
Mm,
I don't have to look a certain way or, when I grew a beard, the guys back in 1990, the guys in Arista were going, "You can't have a beard," like what are you doing growing a beard? That's, like, you guys dress so scruffily. Why don't you go and have singing lessons? And why don't you, talk to the audience more? And why don't you do this and try and sound more like that? And we'll get this producer in and he can do this. It's all, at the time, it was all such a big deal. And nowadays we sit back and laugh at all of that.
yeah.
Um,
Maybe
but
you didn't want Johnny Marr copying the way
what,
you were looking.
what's that?
Maybe
Johnny
you didn't
Marr.
want maybe you didn't want Johnny Marr to copy this look.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he definitely copped an eye full of Marty and thought and figured that's the way to go. and they never ever mentioned it. Not
Coincidental, you think? Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, all's fair in love and war.
Yeah,
Sometimes, um, sometimes people don't really talk about everything that influences them.
yeah,
Um, you
understandable.
know, I remember once talking to Billy Duffy, of all people, from the Cult when we played with Italy, and he said all the fucking bands in England, they fucking ask them who their influences are. They all say Northern Soul. That's fucking bullshit, man. You know, they're fucking. That's not true. But it's like you part of the game is to cover up where
Mm,
you're getting it all from, and everybody likes to think that like Athena sprung fully formed out of Zeus's forehead.
yep.
Um, so people like to think that they just suddenly appeared, you know, looking the way they did and doing what they did, and
Mm,
that isn't always the case. But yeah, it all seems so important back in the '80s, and but now
yeah.
all those record companies, young bands, listen to me. People coming up in the music business, they have different. I imagine they have different battles to fight. It isn't.
Mm,
It isn't the the typical stupid A&R man, out of his brain on cocaine, trying to make you just like something else so he can get a bonus. And they. I mean, it was it was a very dodgy job to have being an A&R man. You had like two or three failures. You worked for a company, and it's like imagine you're working for a petroleum company, although that's an unpolitically correct example. And you go, I think we should drill here, boss. And you drill there, no, costs millions of dollars, no petroleum. I think we should drill over there now. You get three strikes, and you don't hit any money. You're
mm,
out. Now I can see why those guys were the people who signed us up were really invested in us being successful, because they used to spend, they used to spend $200,000 or $300,000 on you, and that was a long time ago when those figures would be like $1 million these days. It kind of gave them, and I understood that it gave them a say in what we did, but it was always the wrong thing. They were always so terribly out of date in what they were wanting you to be like. They were already behind the times and urging you, oh, you should be more like this, like
mm,
when that moment had already come and gone.
yeah.
And
So
I,
in '86, when you were in the thick of it with Arista
yeah,
Records, did you think this was, even at the time, this is not going to last? Just, take it for what it is at the time. Deep down, did you think it was not going to last?
I guess I had a duality going on where I always thought right from the start, from the night time I got my first bass guitar and plucked my first note,
Mm,
I had a voice in me saying, one day you will prevail. One day if you stick to your guns, you will prevail. I thought that in 1986 as well. I thought, on the other hand, there was a lot of bad news always coming in. People ring you up telling you how badly you've done and how few tickets you've sold,
mm,
and you're not doing very well. But Joe Blow's just sold out 5 nights at that place where you can't even get half full. You know, it's a great industry if you want comparisons. If you want to see, you know, you're playing this gig, but your main competitor, he's playing that gig, and he's here in the charts, and you're down there. Oh, and he's staying at that hotel, and you're staying at this hotel.
yeah.
Um,
But in that day, I mean, you're dealing with Michael Gudinski with Mushroom,
yeah,
but you're dealing with somebody like Clive Davis in Arista is like a different level completely. I believe that you bumped in. You've met him once. I think I read something. Marty said that the band only encountered him once. Is that correct?
no, that's not true. I met him when he signed us up,
Hmm.
and he knew a lot more about me than I thought.
Oh, okay.
I met him when he came down the recording sessions, and we played him Under the Milky Way. And he
Yep.
turned around, He didn't care for any of the other songs. In
Yeah.
fact, well, at that stage, Under the Milky Way wasn't the one. I
Mm.
It was could have been something else. I'm not sure.
Yep.
We played him the tracks. He heard Under the Milky Way, went, "That's enough." He turned around, he went, "That's a hit. You got a hit on your hands," and he walked off. And then years later, when it was all going wrong and we hadn't had any more hits,
Mm.
I was summoned to his office, and it was like imagine you're going to a private boarding school and the headmaster is summoning you to his office. The headmaster who is rarely seen and heard, but now
Mm.
you've come to his attention. And I remember there was two bodyguards escorted me to this private lift in the Arista building that went up to this floor. Nobody else could get there, and the lift opened up, and you're in a great big basketball court sized office, and miles away at the end there's Clive Davis sitting behind this great big desk and surrounded by gold records and pictures of all the famous people he'd hung out with. And he's like, "Mr. Kilbey, I hear you're being uncooperative, and I thought you were serious about your music career, and why don't you write some more hits? Why don't you write something like Under the Milky Way? And like, where are you going with this? What are you trying to do? We've spent a lot of," and he opens up it's like the headmaster, Clive
Mm.
opens up "We've spent this much on you, and, you made it, and, you wanted this, and we did it for you, and now, you're not playing ball with us." Um, Really frightening, like not frightening like being threatened by a man just broke into your house with an axe, frightening, but frightening on a kind of a like being hauled in before some authority figure.
CEO or something like your
Yeah, a
boss.
CEO,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and
That's
like this guy,
absurd.
like he's got gravitas in spades. Like this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, they made a documentary about him, and
Mm.
he's got so much. He carries so much weight.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of that. I mean, it sounds funny now. I can say it, and you and I can
Yeah.
laugh. But
What
you
what what
know,
did you just say to him, Steve? Did you
I don't
what
fucking know. I don't. I'm
just
thinking, what did I say? I just went, oh yeah. I don't know. Some
because
limp.
you can be outspoken from time to time. Did you give
Not
it
to
back to
him.
him, or
I
you just
did.
sort of very
No, no.
polite and yeah.
You know what? I can be outspoken, but when a copper pulls me over and says, "Do you have a reason why you were speeding?" I'm not outspoken.
Yes.
I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, officer,"
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
when Clive Davis calls you up to sing, not the time to be outspoken.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I probably, please, Mr. Davis, give me another chance. I'll try
Mm.
harder. I'll go home and try and write a hit. I don't fucking know what I said. I don't even know if he listened to what I might have said.
Yeah.
I was just like, I was just someone who was hauled in to be disciplined. I think we got sacked. I think we had one more album after that, and we got chucked off that
Yeah.
label. Yeah,
Priest
but
equals priest equals aura. That would that the
yeah,
final
no,
one
that
on the
was
lever.
that
Yeah.
was. He said, "I don't want another one like that." And then the next one was even worse, and that was when
Mm.
it was Sometime Anywhere.
Well,
Um,
I guess it's commerce and art, isn't it?
it
Um,
is
what do you do? Like, there's some great bands like The Cure. They just do what they want to do, and you've got
that
the freedom that you can do whatever you want to do.
that the Cure were really lucky. Um, and I've always wondered about that. Um, but people would look at the church. I know other musicians have said, "I wanted to be like you. You just seemed like you were doing whatever you liked and you were having success." And we had all these guys telling us, "You got to do this and you got to do that." And I'd be like, "Well, how come the church can do that?" And they go, "You're not the church." Um,
Mm.
but it seemed like, yeah, you look at the Cure. They they've just they did whatever they liked and they had massive success. That doesn't work out for everybody. You don't know though. I mean, there might be somebody having and disciplining them for
Yeah.
something.
Might be
But
just the right label, because there are some labels that historically do nurture their artists. Like Lou Reed. I mean, he'd barely get arrested on any labels now, wouldn't he? It'd be like one album and you're gone if you don't
are
chart.
there even labels?
Probably
Are there
not.
labels? Are there these guys anymore? I don't think there are. There's. I don't know. I'm not. I mean, I don't know. Does this happen with Troye Sivan or whatever his name is, or
Mm,
does Lady Gaga go in and have these arguments with whoever the equivalent of Clive Davis is?
yeah.
I don't know. These people were investing enormous amounts of money in you, and they wanted you to deliver. And
Mm,
fair enough. I could understand that. What was hard for me was they thought that I was deliberately not being successful out of
mm,
some perverse reason.
mm.
Um, but my parents got that from the teachers and said, "Oh, he could do so much better, but he doesn't try." But I was trying. I was trying. And Clive Davis was the same. He thought that like I could just go home and knock off a hit and he could
Mm,
recoup all his money and make more. But
yeah.
I was just deliberately being an ass and like having him on. And it wasn't like that. And sometimes I didn't probably explain it the way I'm explaining it to you, because so easy in hindsight to go,
Mm,
oh, that's what happened. It's like looking at a football game on TV and going, oh, the goalie he shouldn't have been there, and that guy shouldn't have done that. And but at the time, it's just like I wasn't very good at all of this. I'm not very good in business meetings. I'm not very good at handling authoritarian father figures telling me off.
mm,
Headmasters or guys in record companies. I was always with Clive. I shut up, but with the others, just the A&R guys and stuff, I was really rotten to them and fighting with them, and like there was a book someone wrote, and it had about all these rock and roll bands from Australia when there was this huge push to sign up Australian bands in American labels. And you read about Magic Dirt, and they're in America, and the ruder and nastier they are to this A&R guy who's offering them the moon, the more he comes back. So the more they humiliate him, and the ruder and stupider that they are.
It's like Spinal Tap, Artie
Yes,
Fufkin.
it is. It's Artie Fuck. Yeah, kick
Kick,
my
kick,
ass.
kick my
Yeah, kick
ass.
my ass.
Yeah.
These guys. Yeah, there's a lot of that. I met a lot of Artie Fufkins.
Yeah. Um, the sound of the church, it has evolved over time, and you seem to have this knack of never repeating yourself. Is this
You
something
reckon?
conscious? No, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
there's always been subtle changes. Is this something, a conscious decision of you that, to change things up? And like Priest Equals Aura to me is where you really should have felt really unshackled. You weren't into the
Definitely.
pop, it's got to be a 3 minute or a 4 minute pop song. Let it just loose and the songs breathe. Is that something that you made a conscious decision, or it just happened that way?
I think a bit of both. Um, I think I'm always pushing to the left. I'm always pushing away from mainstream,
Hmm.
always pushing to the left to make songs longer and weirder and different. And with Pre-Sequel Zora, we had this wonderful producer, Gavin McKillop, this Scottish guy. And we did it in Australia, so there were no visits from Arista. They didn't know what we were doing.
Hmm.
And I think for the first time, I really did the thing I wanted to do. I was really, really happy with that record. I thought that that record would set the world alight.
I know it's one of your favorites.
It's one of my favorites for sure.
Mm,
I thought this is it. We have achieved everything I've wanted to do,
mm,
and unfortunately, it was not to be. So I'm consciously trying to, while remaining true to what the sound of the church, which is like a couple of guitars and the way I sing and the things I sing about. Within
mm,
that, within that, those boundaries, I try and push the envelope, which is
mm.
a bit of a mixed metaphor for you right there. And I also sort of let things happen. Sometimes situations come along. We made a record last year in Austin, Texas, with a big American producer, Daryl Thorpe, who mixed Arista and he mixed the Hypnagogue. And he came along, and at first he and I weren't seeing eye to eye. And
Mm.
but instead of really getting too upset about that, I relaxed and he relaxed a bit. And then in the end, we had a really fruitful collaboration. So
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta it's really hard to know when. Sometimes you got to buckle down and go, no, I'm not
Mm.
doing that. That's not right. And other times you got to kind of go along with things and see what might eventuate out of it. I think that's the thing when you're collaborating with producers and stuff. That's the first time we've had a producer for a long time who could sort of have a veto on what we were doing beyond me and go, he could kind of go, no, that wasn't the take, or yes, that was the take. We're going to stop now.
Are you a
And
first take guy, or you don't
mm,
mind doing it again and again and again?
me,
Yeah.
um, I don't, I yeah, I don't. I'm not. I'm somewhere in the middle. I have when we did Starfish. Sometimes we'd play a song 50 times in one day. Can you imagine that? Like
Fatigue levels.
tape number
Jeez.
50, yeah, and then you're just praying, please, no one make a mistake. Please, just let's get this right. I can't play this anymore. And you'd be like,
Mm.
you actually like, sometimes I've been in the studio doing something, um, and I'm just going, if I have to do this one more time, I'm going to lose it. Um, Also, another thing people don't think about, back in the old days, when you say doing vocals, every time you had to do another take, you either had to take the headphones off or you had to listen to
Yeah. Yeah.
and then like they found the right spot for you to come in.
Mm.
So these days they bang, you can go straight, like in a second you can go back to where you want to be, and everybody knows that. Back in those days they had to find it.
Yeah.
So that was an added fucking
Annoyance.
nightmare
Yeah.
standing in there. I'm sure that's what caused my tinnitus, listening to all that backwards shit
Yeah.
happening in my headphones when you just can't be bothered taking them off all the time.
I
Um,
hope you didn't do too many takes of Tantalize. You would have been exhausted because that's a pretty, like, as an example, that's a pretty heavy going song.
yeah, I
That the
I
windmill
just
guitars.
oh yeah, all that.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I hit that
Mm.
guy, and some of them are. Some producers are very reasonable, like
Yeah.
Bob Clearmountain, Peter Walsh, and Gavin McKillop. They were very reasonable guys. When we made Starfish and Gold Afternoon Fix with Waddy Wachtel and Greg Ladani, I couldn't always see what they were going for. Like, we would do a take that I thought was really good, and then they go, no, do it again. And I'd be like, why are we doing it again? And they go,
Mm.
because we said so. And I'm like, I'm happy with that. And they'd be, Kilbey, do it again. And it's very frustrating when you can't figure out why you're doing it again. Waddy Wachtel was always going for some timing thing that I never understood. some perfect sort of thing he wanted from rock and roll that we weren't always that good at, this sort of LA perfection. So yeah, no, but I wasn't extremely bad, but nor was I happy to, I was somewhere in the middle with doing repeated overdubs. Yeah.
Yeah. Just want to talk about songwriting. Are you
Yeah.
always looking to write the perfect song? Because you've written
Yep.
over 1,000 songs. Are you still looking for it?
Yep. Always. Yeah.
When do you know that you've hit it?
Usually, okay, let me talk about this record we just made in Austin. The songs came into life very roughly, and we do a rough version. I do a rough vocal, and no, I don't know, and then we left off Austin. We get rough mixes, and then a remix, and then remixes, and then one day Daryl just sends a mix, on in a Dropbox, and you put that on, and you smoke a joint, and you crank it up loud, or you get in your car. Last night, me and my girlfriend got in the car, and we put the whole album we've made on. I smoked a joint. We went and parked and looked at the sea, and I went, "That's it. This is it." But I didn't think that all along the way. I didn't think when I first wrote, or when we first wrote the songs, they were. But sitting there when it was all over and all the mixes and all the stuff had been done, and it's still yet to have the mastering process, which is yet another sheen of gloss. I'm always amazed by what mastering does,
Yeah.
by how it just tightens everything up.
Do you have
So
a recorder close to you at all times, just in case you get
no,
inspired? No, no.
no. Well,
Yeah.
you've got your phone. If that should happen, you do have your phone these days. I have seen guys in the old days used to walk around with those mini.
Yeah.
Peter Walsh used to do that, who produced Heyday. He'd have one of those little things, and
Yeah.
he'd sort of record things. Um,
Have you ever had an inspiration like Paul McCartney with Yesterday? He dreamt about it, apparently. Have you ever had a moment like that? You've dreamt about a melody and
yeah,
woken up? Yeah.
yeah, I have. I do have that. Usually though, it's more like I sort of get in the. I know I'm not working on writing songs all the time. I work on songs when I'm there to work on a song. So when I'm not working on songs, I sort of think of things, and I put them in the back of my head and go, "Oh, that'd be interesting later on. Maybe there's something in that phrase, or a musical phrase, or
Yep.
a feeling." Um, but often when I am supposed to be working on songs, I'm in a studio. I can get a little bit of inspiration very quickly. I can sort of suddenly hear how this all could be.
So the
I think,
studio is an inspiring environment because there are some musicians, it's the opposite. They just see the red light come on and they freeze. So you're the opposite. You come alive in the studio.
yeah, I think the studio is my forte. That's where I spend a lot of time in studios. I think I know what I'm doing.
Yep. Yep.
I know how to record myself. I know how to record the church, and
Mm.
yeah, it seems to me that's the best place to get the inspiration. I mean, it'd be terrible to get a load of inspiration and then 3 days later you go in the studio and you go, "Oh, I can't remember what it was."
Yeah, absolutely. Um, do you write lyrics first and music later, or is it the other
Music
way around?
first,
Music
or
first.
occasionally I dabble around with having words first. Usually music first, and then the words.
Do you like the lyric process? Is that
Yeah.
something you
Oh, it's
really,
easy.
yeah.
It's the easiest thing. It's
Mm.
the easiest thing. I don't know. It's like how mystical do you want to get? Um, tuned into some lyrical river, and whenever I need it, it's there. And I write all my lyrics like within 3 minutes. So a typical day would be with the church, say, we've recorded a backing track, and the producer will, or me, or whoever's running the show will say, tomorrow morning you're going to sing on this. And I go in, I say, put the track on, I smoke a joint, and then I start vocalizing. Oh, and then very quickly, like within 3 or 4 minutes, I have it all. It's all written down, and I'm ready to go.
Was Under the Milky Way the lyrics? Did that come quickly?
Oh yeah, that that whole thing was over within 5 minutes. They all are.
Yeah.
They're all 5 minutes. Everything I do is. I mean, okay. Say on this new church album, there's some very complex timing and chord changes. On those things, they can take hours to work on that and go, look, the second time this bit comes around, let's spend 2 bars there, and then let's do this and then do that, and we try that. But the actual germs of it, and especially the lyrics, all comes rapidly, like as fast as I can write it down. Sometimes the whole song downloads into my head, and I can't write it down fast enough. I'm frightened I'm going to lose it if I can't. And then I look back and it's almost illegible how fast I'm going to try and write this whole thing down while it's still there.
Yeah. I know you've probably been asked this question 1,000 times, so it's 1,001. Why do you think Under the Milky Way has resonated with so many people? What is so special?
Ambiguity. It's subtle, and everyone can hear it wasn't written to be a hit. You can hear that the moment it comes on. You know that this is not a guy sitting down really trying hard to write a hit single. You can hear it sort of. It's someone sitting there opening his antenna and catching whichever song's out there, and then it's got an ambiguous lyrics, an ambiguous feeling, and it's a sort of song everybody who hears it can take something different out of it, and then the people who choose to cover it and use it, they find something different in it as well. If you got the time, there's this brilliant film of these, like maybe 20 odd years ago. They're these little there's these school children in Philadelphia, and their teacher is out the front and he's playing the guitar, and these little black girls, about 5 or 6, and they're like, wish I knew what you were looking for. And they found this whole thing in there that I never dreamed would be
a soul angle.
Yeah.
Soul gospel.
Yeah, like I'm warning you. I heard this. There was a whole show on Milky Way on the ABC just recently.
Yeah.
Like about a month ago. Okay, there were a couple of girl singers and a cello player during COVID, and they were all in different hotel rooms. They found a very feminine thing in that I wish I knew what you were looking for.
Yeah.
A sort of accusing is the wrong word, but a sort of a very feminine way. I felt like they were in their heads, they're addressing a man in their life, like, whereas me, and then Jimmy Little did.
I was going to tell you that his version is sublime.
His slightly sleepy,
jazzy.
Luxurious.
I always thought the melody in that song had a bit of a jazzy progression.
It does. So I think that's the thing. I just hit this marvelous amount of ambiguity where, and everybody has a different, people go, it's about the Australian night, out in the bush and you see the stars, and people other people, it reminds them of a time. It was in this movie set in
Donnie Darko.
Boston in
Oh, yep.
1988.
Dennis
Not that
Leary.
one. Yeah, it's in
Dennis
Donnie
Leary.
Darko. I mean, look at that. Donnie Darko, the bunny
Mm.
coming down the stairs, the future coming out of his stomach. And then Under the Milky Way plays, and it's like, wow, that feels just right. I saw another, a long forgotten Australian movie where a bunch of gay guys at a funeral of one of their friends who's died of AIDS, someone says, I'm going to put some fucking music on. They put on Under the Milky Way and they dance around the room very funereally. And it was perfect. And every time it gets used, it's in a Hyundai ad at the moment. It was in an ad for traveling across Australia. Every time it gets used, I'm amazed at how it's like. Did you remember they used to have these aftershaves, and they say whoever wears it, it will become your smell. It won't be a generic smell. When you put this on your skin, you will have your own smell. And so Under the Milky Way, I don't know how it does that, but it sort of, whoever hears it and whoever performs it, and in whichever context it's used, it's right. So it could be played at a funeral, but it could be played at a wedding, and it could be played at a bar mitzvah, and it could be a bunch of guys at a drunken bucks night strumming along. It could be the national anthem, or it could be a sad teenage girl sitting in her room listening to it, feeling isolated, a bedsitter person or whatever. And however it is, it has some sort of resonance. But I don't know how it did that. I fucking wish I did, Peter, because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I'd be out on a yacht. Living it up. But I only was able to manage this one song that had this marvelous adaptability.
But it still ticks over, Steve. It still ticks over.
It's ticking over all the time. When this conversation ends, I probably earned 5 cents more than I had when we started.
Absolutely. Hey, I've got to talk about your collaborations with, folks like Grant McLennan, Martin Kennedy, Kate Sobrano, Steve Cummings.
Yeah.
Have you got a wish list of who's on your wish list that you'd like to
Nobody.
Nobody?
Nobody.
What attracted you to collaborating with those folk? Just you were a fan?
All of them approached me. You might find this hard to believe, but I feel a bit unworthy. And I didn't ring up Kate Sobrano and go, hey, let me write you lyrics.
Yeah.
I didn't go up to Grant McLennan and go, hey, make a record with me. Martin Kennedy, he approached me. When people, they're like, the people I'm mentioning, who wouldn't? Who's not going to collaborate? If you meet Grant McLennan, he goes, hey, we should make a record together. Who would have said no to him? Who's going to say, if Kate goes, hey, why don't you write some lyrics for me? Who's going to go, no, I don't want to do that? And Martin Kennedy had all this marvelous music, and he put his music where his mouth was. He didn't just say, hey, would you like to collaborate? He sent me some tunes, and I was like, I've got to do this, and I'm up for that. If someone sends me some marvelous piece of music and says, would you like to sing on it? I will. I just recently did a guy put out an album called Garage, and he sent me a marvelous piece of music. I said, yeah, I'll sing on that. But I don't go hunting them down. I don't try and send Brian Eno an email going, hey, you should collaborate with me, or Robert Smith or anybody. But
you're always open to it.
I'm open to it.
Absolutely.
I'm open to it. In any way I can be useful, I'm open to it.
Absolutely. In 2014, you did a psychedelic symphony.
Yeah.
With the
2011.
2011 with the George Ellis Orchestra. Was that a satisfying experience?
Yes.
Would you do it again?
Yeah.
Because I think an album like this, would do. I'd love to hear it with an orchestra. It's got that big sound, that landscape sound.
Yeah, it's harder. It's harder to make that happen. It's harder to make that happen than you think.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts, a lot of rehearsal, a lot of money up front. Those string players, you can't get the bassoon player in and go, hey, if we make some money, I'll chuck you a few bucks. You know what I mean? It's like I get this much every 3 hours, and every 3 hours I have a half an hour off to have my tea break, and then I'll do another. You know, it's like
you're not telling me there was rock star behavior with the violinists and the second cellos, were you?
No, they no, they don't. They don't. I remember once we I remember once we did this David Bowie orchestrated show, and I stood there with Tim Rogers as this very attractive, I think she was a bassoonist, walked past, and Tim Rogers goes, "Hey, how you going?" And she looked at him, and I don't even think she knew who he was, even though you know. And he went, "Wow, that's a nice instrument. How much did that cost?" And she was like, "What the fuck?" You know, like they don't mingle. The classical players don't mingle with the rockers.
It was just being cordial.
They don't. No, you don't. They're off limits. You don't chat them up, and they don't come in the room and have a joint, you know, before the show and have a drink. They're like a world unto themselves. And you
sparkling mineral water on the rider.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't maybe. You intersect with them through the conductor. You know, if you have anything to say with them, it all goes through the conductor. It doesn't, you know, you don't walk around going, "Hey, gee, that's a nice cello." You know what I mean? That's how it was for me anyway. I find them sort of daunting. They don't see music the way I do. And it's far more of a job. And even when it seems even when you do like an amazing show like that, and you see them playing, the minute it's over, they walk off and drive away. They're not like us rockers, you know, like, fuck, did you know, like, what did we just do? That was fucking incredible. It's not like that in the classical world. It's all there on the page, and, you know, they do their thing and then they go home.
Yeah. With collaborations, just one question, hypothetical question. Marty Wilson Piper rings you and says he wants to collaborate again. Would you be open to that?
No.
So that door's closed.
Closed with him, all those former members. I don't want to see them. I don't want to hear from them. I don't want to read about them. Nothing. Sorry, that's over.
Okay, that's the answer to the question. You're a novelist, artist, a photographer. Do these feed creatively into your music?
I'm a photographer. Did you say I'm a photographer?
Well, I saw you've done some photos in this.
No, yeah. Oh, that's very kind of you, Peter. That's very kind of you to say I'm a photographer. Yeah, I took some pictures on my iPhone of some interesting things. I thought, wow, I can put that on my album cover.
But does all of that feed creatively into your music and vice versa? The art, the writing, you know, novels.
It's all mixed up. It's all like it all comes from the same place. And the more I paint, and the more I write books, and the more I write music and play music, I realize it's all mixed up. And the feeling of standing before a white sheet of paper that's 3 foot by 2.5 feet, and there's nothing on it, and you're standing there, and you're saying to yourself and the universe, I'm going to impose something on this that isn't there, and I'm going to have the faith and the conviction to follow through and not doubt myself, is the same as rolling up into a studio in Austin last year, and the producer says, well, what have you got? And I say, we haven't got anything. And he says, what do you mean? Where are all the tunes? I say, we haven't got them yet. And he says, what, what the fuck? He did.
Mm,
It's like, what the fuck? I've never done this. You've got to have something. I go, we got nothing.
mm,
But I have the confidence, and this is what I always had. And it's so hard. You can be the best guitarist in the world. You can know all the chords. You can fucking be like Jimi Hendrix and be able to play the hind leg off a donkey, but you do not necessarily have the sheer gall to just go, this is going to be a song, and I've just got a bass guitar, and I'm just going to go boom, boom, boom. That's all I've got. But I have the confidence, if I can start a song, if you let me put down 3 minutes of boom, boom, we will find something to put over the top and make that into a song. But the best players in the world, e.g. those people you were mentioning before, they didn't know how to do that. They could go, they didn't have the whatever it takes to go, I am now about to create a song, and 1, 2, 3, here we go. This is the song. That's what I've always had. It's like the audacity, the sheer audacity to go, I'm going to fill this silence with my song. I'm going to fill this piece of paper with my painting. I'm going to fill these reams and this typewriter or this computer with my novel or my poem, or I'm going to snap this picture with my iPhone and I'm going to put it on my album cover, and someone's going to enjoy it because I'm going to figure out the context. That's what I do. I start things off, I build foundations, and then I get really good players in to play on top of that once I've established that this will be the thing we're going to do. And it may seem that that's such a simple thing to do, but it is simple. But it's the hardest thing to do, is to say, let this be the song, and we're doing it now, and this is it, and I'm choosing this thing to start. And that's what a lot of players don't seem to be able to do. Even though they're incredible players, they can't just take C, F. You watch that Bob Dylan film, and all those songs are just C, F, and G. They're just the same over and over and over, the same chord progression. But Dylan has this fucking audacity to sit down, and when he starts singing, he plays his C, F, and G over and over and over and over. He has the nerve, the gall to go, this is my song, and I'm doing it with confidence, even though musically there's absolutely nothing groundbreaking going on at all. And that's kind of what it's all about, is being able to do that and create these openings, and then you can bring in really good players to fill it all up.
yeah, absolutely. Final question. What are the plans for the church this year? Any new material, any albums coming out?
Well, the one we made in Austin, I guess,
Okay.
will come out or start coming out bit by bit. There'll be a single and a single and a single. We
Yeah.
made this wonderful album. At the moment, it's a double album.
Nice.
Some people mightn't want it to be a double album. I don't know yet. We're re-signing with Cooking Vinyl, who we were formerly with. They're anxious to get back in bed with us. I don't know if they want a double album or a single album. If they don't want a double album, that's going to be hard, because we've now got 20 songs that we've become very attached to. So we will start, I hate to use this phrase, dropping tracks from that. Touring America, touring Australia, going to the Maldives next month, tropical holiday.
Excellent.
That's really it. Maybe 2026, if we're all still here, if I'm still here, maybe we'll get around to Europe, and maybe this time next year we'll be talking about the church's esoteric tour, where we're not going to play any singles and we're going to play that album you're holding up, and it's going to be a whole new thing, or maybe a compromise. But it's sort of who knows what's like. It's all very open, and it's all flowing, and like a game of football. You can plan all you like, but when you go on, you don't know which way the ball's going to bounce, and you've got to be ready to, you know, if this time next year someone comes along and says, I think you should do a tour and play pre-sequels Aura, I'd be open to that. But I'd be open to playing our new album. Or if someone says, hey, that singles tour was so fucking good, can't you just, everybody wants you to do it one more time, maybe I'll collapse and go, okay, yeah, one more time. I think that's the thing, keeping it all fluid and open, consulting with the other guys in the band, and trying to figure out what the audience wants. There are people who just go around, in this country at least, go around, they've got the same set, and they just go around, they do it over and over and over with a new name. Every tour it has a new name, but you know it's going to have the same songs. But I'm not going to say who that is, but there's someone very successfully doing that. And sometimes he plays really big venues, and sometimes he plays little pubs, and he's essentially always playing the same set, but it is recontextualized with a new name. The tour has a new name, but it's always you know you're going to get these songs. Obviously, people like that. You know, not everybody wants some mind-blowing exploration of stuff they haven't heard before. Some people do want to hear those same old fucking songs. If this time next year someone can successfully sit down and go, Steve, you just got to do that again, it's going to really be successful. Maybe I'm going to have to consider that as an option.
You might have to call it the same old fucking songs tour.
The same old, wouldn't that be great? Like, be completely upfront. The Church, the same old fucking songs as last year tour.
I'd buy that tour t-shirt.
Yeah, I know. Actually, that's a really good idea.
Steve, it's been wonderful talking to you.
Okay, thanks, Pete.
Mate, I'd love to talk to you again. You know, next time you've got something around. So it's been really enjoyable.
You know where to find me. You know where to find me.
I do.
Set it up, and we can always talk. And I'm available to talk about other things as well. You know,
absolutely.
if you go, you know, Sergeant Pepper's turning 60 this year, or you know, drugs in the music industry, or what advice would you give to a young bass player, or what do you think of AI? You know, whatever it is, if you have a special subject you think I could have some input in, I'm willing to talk about that as well.
Absolutely. Would love to get you on.
All right.
Rock Daydream Nation.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve Kilbey.
Bye, mate.